G'day there, I'm back again, your worst nightmare. But I had so many people look at my other video and make nice comments, and they've asked me to show you how I actually managed to put this camera together and turn an SLR or a Nikon FE into a digital camera using electric film. When you're shooting off the bare sensor, I've got to set I've got 2 stops more light now, so I set the sensor, the ISO of this at 400 and the ISO of that at 1600. Imagine what you can do with that. You can put a red filter on here with your infrared and do all sorts of stuff. But then when you shoot it on a nice sunny day and you've got the greenery, the trees and all that sort of stuff, and you convert it to black and white in Noir, N-O-I-R, and I do that on the Mac program because I don't have Photoshop and I wouldn't know how to use it anyway. And you get these really fantastic looking black and whites. So this is the way to go. Don't worry about that filter. Just shoot in black and white, or use the colour off the infrared. Okay, so I'll get into it and I'll show you how I put all this together. So to get this camera to work, you've got to prepare the sensor. So there's our sensor there, and the first thing you do obviously is to take the IR filter off the top of it, and that would have been there. So that takes about 15 minutes using a tool like one of these to just sort of work your way around it. If I can get this off, and you just sort of work it away around and around and around and keep pushing in, pushing in, and then that will just flip off. Okay, so put him over there for the moment. The next thing you got to do is get that sensor to fit into between the film rails. So on my first camera I actually filed the film rail down a bit, but you don't need to do that because I've worked out another way to do it. So if you put a pair of calipers in there, 23.87, and so what I've done, there's a little bit of glass that sits over the top of that sensor there, and I've filed that down so that that fits. And the way I've filed that down is I've just used a diamond file, and sometimes with a little bit of moisture on it, and just gradually kept working against that bit of glass, and that's that bit of glass over the sensor there, back and forth until I've got that correct width. So now that sensor drops sits perfectly between those film rails, and I can tell you it fits into every other camera here. So whether it's a Leica or a Canon, a Nikon or whatever, that sensor will just drop in there. The next thing you've got to do is make the sensor, the depth of the sensor, similar to that one, so you get it to the film plane. And the film plane, once that's done, it'll be the same on every camera. It doesn't matter what their film planes are, that'll end up the same as if you had film in a camera. So at the moment, the thickness of this one is, let's have a quick look. And this is a bit hit or miss, you know, you sort of got to work on this a bit. Okay, we're about 1.87, right? Now you need to get that down close to a millimetre. I think I had this one here about 1.08, and then I fine-tuned it, which will freak some people out, that I just left it like that, and I just got a bit of sandpaper and just kept rubbing it and testing it, rubbing it and testing it until I got it pretty right. So the best way to sand these down is to use some 80 grit sandpaper, and you cut that, put that on flat on a bench, and then just rub this thing back and forth, back and forth. It's going to take you quite a few hours to get it right, and check with your calipers, and you'll be right. Okay, so we've got our sensor ready to go. So I'm going to show you how then we can sort of build a camera with this sensor in it. So you drop that on there. Now you see there's a little bit of a gap each side because the sensor's only a 1.5 crop. It's not as big as a piece of film. But you know, if you think outside the square, you could easily make that little section light proof. And the rest of this wouldn't matter if it's getting light into it. So you could make your own camera back, something like that. And just pop her on there to put your Sony Nex digital camera on the back of your film camera. So we got that on there, and let's just have a look at this. So say we built something like that, and I've just pop riveted that to a film canister so that it holds in here. And so I could drop that on there, if I can get it on. See, made a little hinge for it, bit of wire goes through there, that'll hold it in place. Let's get our sensor over here. Okay, so then we can mount our Sony Nex over the top of that, and off we go. No problem. Now these are your little delicate little cables that you know they all say you're not meant to touch them with your hands, but that's that's crap because I did and it worked. These babies have got to sit in here and they've got to loop over the shutter into the motherboard. And there's two of them, there's another one here. And yeah, proverbial pain in the ass, but we'll get there. Righto, let's get that out of the way. So let's, I'll show you how I built the camera now. I'll pop that off, I think. Yeah, because I'm going to show you something else too, another trick you might idea, because you've got to think outside the square to put this sort of thing together. Okay, let's get that out of the way. Let's get our camera, and here we are. This is a Sony Nex 5. There's plenty of programs on the internet, you know, YouTube things on how to dismantle one of these, and all you need is a really good screwdriver like that. So let's just dismantle this baby and see how we go. Okay, there's all our bits and pieces that we need to build a camera. As you can see, I sort of wrecked this one. Let's get that one out of the way. Right, everything we need. Oh, need a battery. Hang on, let's get one. And a battery, and our sensor, and our cables, and virtually all that is all we need to build our Sony. You don't need all this junk that's floating around in here that fell out of the camera when I pulled it apart. Right, this is our base plate, and I sort of got a bit of an idea that you could actually just build one of these base plates straight onto the back of the camera without having and utilize this space in here. So you'd have your sensor sitting there. Where are you, baby? Here you go. Have your sensor sitting there. Start putting this all together. You got space to put your battery in there, and a bit more, you know, electronic stuff and whatever. If you're really good with cameras, you'd work all this out. Okay, so get that out of the way. What I've done is, you see, I've sort of cut the face right off this Sony and used a little Dremel tool and a file and whatever. And you've got to have a nice space up here, because we need, when you've got that sensor sitting there with these cables sitting on it, right, like that, can you see? Yeah, you can, like that. You've got to get that over the top of the shutter assembly onto the motherboard, which is, it used to be the other way around, didn't it? The sensor used to just go straight onto the motherboard and then the shutter was in front or something like that. Anyway, let's have a go, see how we go here. First off, we need the dreaded shutter. You don't need the shutter anymore, but the camera software keeps looking for it, and nobody's hacked the software on one of these to get rid of the shutter, so unfortunately it's an absolute pain. But that just sits in there like that. Then we get our motherboard, which I've got that around the right way. Yep. Okay, so I'll put this on the ground because I shake like you wouldn't believe. We'll sit him in there like that, and the motherboard has got to slope downwards because we've got to get those cables, we've got to stretch those cables up over the shutter into that location there. Can you see that? Right, next thing we need is the switch, and if I can work out where it goes, okay, that slots down in here. You wouldn't believe I could build this thing, would you, the way I shake? Anyway, that sits up there, that sits up there like that, and see, we've taken away all the framework, you know, all, hang on a sec, I dropped it. All this sort of stuff that's, you know, hanging around inside the Sony. You don't need that. You just got to make this baby slope down there like that, so that these little cables, let's see if we can get one, are gonna come up through there, off and loop over the shutter. I think we've established that fact, I won't mention it again. Okay, we got that sitting there, and that's sitting there. Mind you, this will be a lot better when it's all screwed together, a lot tighter. What's next? Oh yeah, this frame here, and what you need to do is, when you get your screen, you got to pull these screws apart to give yourself a bit of length to be able to plug this thing in, because you sort of need to plug this in now before you cover it up, right? That'd be a smart thing to do. Okay, so we whack that on there. Crikey, it fitted quickly. Couldn't do that before. Have I got everything in there? Oh yeah. Oh, no, I forgot something. See that? That's your SD card. And if I pull that off, I won't be able to get it in, but that plugs onto that, which I broke, but you can see that sort of plugs in there, And you'll work it out when you pull one of these apart, because they're all different the way they got these SD cards. They got some going that way, some going that way, but he fits in there like that. And then we get this thing here, and that's got a little switch panel on it, right? Just put your switch panel in place. That plugs into the motherboard. I hope you can see all this. Yeah, plugs into the motherboard, and then we put that on top, right? Mind you, that's the tricky part, because you've got this screen hanging out. You've had to sort of get this screen through here. Okay, so, oh look, our little Sony Nex is coming together like a beauty. Get your screen. Oh, this one had all sorts of framework on it and springs and, you know, bull dust. So cut all that off, because you don't need it. You just need to get this thing on and flat, you know, like that. There we go. There's our little Sony. She's ready to go. What are we doing now? Oh yeah, I was going to show you a good idea. Okay, so let's get our camera, which is can be any camera, but this is a Nikon FE, because you know we're not going to worry about these filters anymore. They're boring. I've got something better to do. You know, look at this. You'd almost get a smart guy get a battery in there somehow. Honestly, you would, and that's pretty easy to solder little wires to go into this camera. I actually had one of these working, soldering that on, even though I can't solder. Okay, so you just imagine this. That's going to sit on there, just like that. Just like that. Look how neat that looks. That's bloody awesome, isn't it? Your battery's in there, right? Your SD card's in there. You'd even fit now. Oh, dropped in, perfect. And all you need to do is make up a cover that covers up this area here. And if you make sure that when you put your sensor in, you've light sealed it on the film plane area, you're not too worried about light, stopping your light getting in. It'd be a good thing, but if you can't, you can't. And the other thing you can use a lot of is Tarzan tape. Well, I'm an expert at Tarzan tape. Have a look at this Tarzan tape around this baby. Oh yeah, holds everything together, including the sensor in place. So there you go. You can whack one of these on the back of an SLR, and if you don't use, if you give up using these, which knocks off so much two-stops of your light anyway, you can use any camera and turn it into a little digital beauty like this. So just to give you a closer idea of how I use the camera, underneath here I've got a little handle which will fire off the Sony. So let's just wake it up with that. There's our Sony awake. The display's upside down. You don't need to worry about that because the pictures are all up the right way. I've got the ISO set at 400 on the Sony, but I've got it set at 1600 on the Nikon, and that's because we don't have the IR filter installed, and that gives us so much more light coming in. That creates a lot of fun to use this camera. Then I've got no auto white balance. I've got that set on manual, so that's on 2900K and G8. That's so the colour photos without the filter look a little bit, they've got a pinkish tinge to them, but they still look a bit like old-fashioned film. So even your colour can look quite good by not using the IR filter. Everything else is set to manual, so you've got no aperture. It's a manual adjustment of your focus and your aperture, of course. And we've got the camera set at 2.5 seconds, the Sony. So let's fire off a shot. So we wind on the Nikon, wake up the Sony again, wake up baby, fire off a shot, and fire the Nikon. And there's our photo. Let's just zoom in, quick look at the old Voigtlander and the old M3 there, waiting for a service. There you go. Well, thanks for watching, and I thought I'd just show you that you can even use a movie through the Nikon with the Sony Nex digital back. I'll just step back here. There you go. This is what it looks like in infrared without the filter. Look, the camera's been that much fun to use. I've really had a ball with it, and it's been a great challenge. But I still like using my film cameras in black and white and processing cap and all. That's just awesome. Okay, all the best, and I hope you enjoyed it.